I feel like our opinion is in the...
And, please stop. I haven't even done the intro.
Hi!
We're here to stir up the internet.
No, we're not.
With hot controversy.
That's a year old.
The Last of Us 2 anniversary was this past week.
Mm-hmm.
And in honor of the anniversary, we're going to cause the world to burn and say two things. One is not so controversial. The Last of Us 2 is one of the best games ever. Mm-hmm. The other one is...
We agree.
Joel is a villain.
Okay. Yep. I personally don't believe there are any, villains in the story.
Way to take the cop-out way.
That's not a cop-out!
Actually, I don't really have an opinion.
No, I have an opinion. I just think... I'm Team Ambi all the way, but I'm just saying, I think that they're just humans. Very flawed humans.
Humans are villains.
In a post-apocalyptic world. Okay, well, if that's your opinion, then I agree. I'm just trying to... There's no, black and white, I think, to this story. And I will play the devil's advocate for some of the points that we'll bring up since we are on the same page with this.
I actually think that's not true. I think people say that because they got attached to Joel and there's things to like about Joel.
I got attached to Joel.
And they got attached... They, hated Abby but then learned to accept Abby. But, here's the thing is that no villain ever is really a villain in their own story. Every villain is justified for the things that they do.
That's true. Darth Vader.
It's just
Joker.
That The Last of Us 2 told the story in such a way that we got to see the side of Joel the villain first.
We got attached to his character from the start. And he is one of my favorite characters of all time. So
if we had played the first game from Abby and her father's perspective, we would hate Joel, even knowing that he was attached to... Even knowing his backstory. If we had played as Abby and her dad first...
What's up to Troy Baker, who's one of the best voice actors of all time. Continue.
I don't remember what I was saying.
Sorry.
And I feel like the people that don't agree that Joel's a villain aren't understanding that it's okay to identify with a villain and know that he still did wrong. Well, but... Ellie was like a daughter. He doomed all of mankind.
And I think, yes, he was like a father figure to Ellie because he lost his own daughter Sarah to the virus. Well, not to the virus, but to the initial outbreak. Oh, yeah, the events that happened at the very beginning. He lost Sarah. Horrible. First time I've cried within the first 5 minutes of a game. And Ellie became that daughter to him. She didn't have a grown father or any adult figure in her life before that stuck with her, and she's about 14 to 16 in the first game. It's a very important development sometime in any child's life, entering those preteen years. So she had Joel as a father figure, and I think a lot of people brought up the fact that Ellie did not agree to be killed. However, she didn't agree to be killed. I don't think that was ever really brought up because I think, if I remember correctly, Joel did sort of tell her that it was going to be something... He was trying to ease the blow of it, I think. I think he just said it was going to be yeah, just probably just an injection.
Draw some blood.
Yeah.
How will they do it?
Do what?
Get the cure from me? You think it'll hurt?
No. We'll probably just draw some blood. It don't hurt.
But they didn't know the enormity of what it would be. And to be honest, if you're the only person in the world that is known to be immune to this world-killing, ending virus that turns anyone and no one in the history of mankind, not that we know of, is immune to this, would you give them the option to... I know this is maybe I shouldn't say this. Do you ask someone to be hey man, look, you're the only person that's immune. We might be able to get a cure out of you. Only thing is, you might die. Yes, no? If they say no, they'll be oh well, never mind. We'll just keep going as is. Oh shoot, there's a clicker.
I'm not lying. If it was my daughter, and I don't have kids, but I can only imagine my nieces. If I had to hand them over and knew they were gonna die to save mankind, I don't know
It's
if I
hard
could,
to say,
but
yeah.
I would definitely know I was a bad guy. Like, you can't say, well, just because you would have done the same thing as him and you can identify with it doesn't mean he's not a villain. It just means you can identify with it.
Joel also knew that he was a villain, I think, or that he made a questionable decision just because, like, he kind of told Tommy.
Jesus Christ, Joel. What do you do?
Tommy was like, "What the hell have you
He
done?"
hid it from Ellie.
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. Ain't done him a damn bit of good, neither.
He killed Marlene, and it could be said that Marlene, over Joel, knew what Ellie would want and knew that she wanted to do this because she knew probably more than Joel, because Joel attached himself to Ellie in a way that I think is that was detrimental to the end result. Marlene knew Ellie in a different way.
It ain't for you to decide.
It's what she want. And you know it.
And then we hear Ellie in the second game tell Joel,
I'm not trying to.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me. I don't think I can ever forgive you for that.
and there is the argument that is there that's like, she only said that after she was saved and that she didn't end up dying. That's true, but I've lost my train of thought and thrown it to you. I was gonna say something. Oh man,
It's just Abby.
my brain just died. Anyway,
If I had watched the only like good character in the whole game, the only real good character is Abby's father.
yeah, he's
They
the most
paint
pure
this
one.
story where he's like, please.
Sorry.
They paint this story where he's like taking care of a wild animal, and he's he's just a good guy, and then he's this brilliant doctor that's gonna knows a way to come up with the cure, and
He's painted as a very.
He's
Sorry,
gonna-
I'm so sorry. I never get these many texts in one.
Turn it
go.
off. Can't you
It's
turn the
so
noise
mean.
off?
Yes.
Why do you even have it on? You're rude.
Because I never. Yes, Abby's father was painted in a very good, pure way. He helps animals. He's
And-
a good guy. He's a doctor. He's very.
If I had seen someone shoot my father in front of me, you bet your sweet asper cream that
Bet you sweet ass.
I would hunt them down and probably do worse, if I'm being honest, in that world where it's lawless.
I see. Yeah, I don't know if I would, but I mean, I don't know. It was pretty brutal. It was horrifically brutal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say. What
Don't
you would,
mess with my
You
people.
don't know what you would do in that situation because we're not in it. We haven't
Definitely
been faced
no.
with those experiences. I would also say a lot of people argued that at the end of the first game, Ellie knew that Joel was lying and all that, but it could be said that Ellie saw Joel as the only father figure she's really ever had during those important years in a world where everything's post-apocalyptic world where there's not much hope anywhere. She, of course, would have wanted within her whole soul to believe him. There was doubt there, but I don't think she would have called out the only person in her life that she really looked up to, that he was lying off the bat for something and a decision that's so big and bigger than everyone. And then we see her react a few years later when she's like more of a young adult at this point, and, you know, she finds out that he did lie to her, and
She's upset.
yes, and then, you know, she's obviously a lot older now and can sort of make more decisions on her own. Also, you know, Ellie has been taught a lot of Joel's traits. We see that in the second game where she tortures and does the same things he did too. So you can tell that he did leave a pretty big mark on her. But as she was older and found out the truth, she's pissed.
You can argue too that Abby doesn't torture people or do anything generally. Her whole thing she did to Joel was vengeance. And, you know, if we're gonna argue morals in a post-apocalyptic world, she was far more justified. So, you know, if you're blinded by the fact that you love Joel and
Joel's great,
and
like-
you have a kid, so you would have done the same thing, I think like, take yourself outside of it a moment and understand that, yes, like I said, I don't even know if I would have done anything different than Joel. Doesn't mean I'm not aware that would be the wrong choice.
Doesn't mean it makes you a good person, you know, either way. It's just a very human
It doesn't
decision.
make you a bad person.
It's a human
It's
decision
just-
to make. You know, you want to defend the person, and a lot of people hate the second game just because, you know, Joel was such a beloved character, or rather, Joel, through the lens of the first game, you got very attached to him, even though he was a bad person. He did bad things in the first game. He was a bad person, but you were attached to him just because he had very identifiable qualities. You know, very father-like. I grew attached to Ellie, would defend her above
You
all
heard
else.
his story first.
Street smart.
There's this phenomenon in psychology, and I can't think of the word at the moment. If I'm not lazy, I'll look it up. But where the side of the story that you hear first is generally the side you're going to take. So, for example, the example we talked about, I remember learning this in school, was a talk show. So a girl comes out on a talk show and says he was working late every night, but really he was cheating on me because I found this and this and this. When the guy comes out, the audience is already booing. Every time he's like, no, I was at work. They just didn't.
They don't give him a chance to speak.
Right. They just didn't clock my hours, and I'm talking to them about it, and we're in the process. Boo. But if the guy had come out first and been like, man, I've been working late hours to try to get us a new house because we're about to have a baby, and she just doesn't trust me and thinks I'm cheating on her and stuff, when the girl comes out, the crowd's gonna be like, come on, like, give the guy a chance. Like, that's just a human nature. And so we basically heard Joel's side of the story first. So we're gonna attach to him automatically. It's just a natural psychological fact generally. But if you can remove yourself from the emotions of it all, if we're looking at this like, who's justified here? Abby killed Joel, but Joel killed her dad. But her dad was going to kill Ellie, but it was for the good of the world and not anything selfish. And he was the only one in the game that didn't make a selfish choice. Because I think they painted a good enough picture about Abby's father that he wouldn't want to kill a little girl if there was any other way.
Yeah.
And so I think the only one that didn't make a selfish choice, that had a hard decision to make and wasn't
of.
selfish, was Abby's father.
That we know of. But it wasn't shown to us for a reason. Because
Abby's father's the baby face, Abby's a tweener, and Joel's a heel.
They're all tweeners, honestly. I think that, yeah, and the reason why a lot of people hate the second game is because, you know, Joel was, spoiler, this whole video is a spoiler, I don't even know why I need to say that.
It's not a
He
spoiler
was
if it's
killed
been out a
off
year.
pretty early in the second game. And it was shockingly early. It was so early, like we were still in the
It was a
freaking-
surprise.
we were still in the introduction of the game. It was a surprise, and I think, and then your first, what other game? People are still talking about it today. What other game has made you feel so conflicted with everything? You know, you're attached to Joel and Ellie. They're fine. Joel gets killed. Oh my gosh. Then you're forced to play as Abby, who you don't really know much about, but you just know that she killed Joel. Look, raise your hand if you, as soon as you were able to play as Ellie, you ran straight off a cliff.
No, Abby.
Abby, sorry.
I
And
tried to run her off a cliff. I hated her.
I did too. Like, you had this hatred in her, but, like, I think...
I just think the way the developers manipulated your emotions to tell the story was
I love that.
brilliant.
And it's not always, like, no game's always gonna have, like, a neat ending, and
It shouldn't.
even at the very, very end, when Ellie made so many questionable decisions. She like left her family, a family that she had in a post-apocalyptic world. That I don't think that would come
For
around.
a selfish
For
reason.
a selfish reason to kill Abby, and they still fought to the death, even though she freaking found Abby strung up, who's malnourished. She looks so different, and she still went to kill this woman. Like, I mean.
Selfish. Like I
Damn.
said, the only person.
I did not want to play that scene at all. I was like, can we just like leave? Seriously, I was so annoyed at her at that point, but whatever. And albeit she did they did end up parting ways anyway, but then Ellie had lost her family.
Yep.
So to what?
But
and
I
then
know
it
this
wasn't
is
like a nice ending. It was weird.
when I tweeted that I was Team Abby on the actual day of the anniversary of Last of Us 2, it caused all kinds of hubbub in the thread. So go ahead, comment, discuss below, because that's the beauty of this game. And that is the biggest proof that this game was brilliant, is that people are talking about it and going back and forth. And they're, as much as I'll argue, like, here's the heel, the baby face, whatever, but there isn't a black and white. It's very gray all over the page, and that's why we can talk about it, and we will forever. And every time one of our friends plays, we'll be like, what part are you at? And we want to know how they feel.
Tegan's playing right now.
Keep it going in the comments. I just wanted to capitalize on the fact that this was the 1 year anniversary, and it's a topic that people love to discuss. So let's
Even
keep
though
talking.
people still hate the game and they still talk about it. But I love hearing opposing opinions, because we're not trying to discuss our point of view to like get into a fight. I genuinely am interested to hear the reasons why people feel the way that they do, besides from like, oh, they killed Joe, I loved him. Like, yeah, okay, but why are you mad? Like, I want to know. I want to know these things. I find it interesting to hearing other perspectives, and it helps our argument too, to know more about what else. And like, I like talking to people about it. That
to bring
like
this full life lesson, this game brings about a good amount of intelligent civil discourse. We should carry that over to all things in life. Real quick, if you go and talk to Jay Duke ever on her, she streams every morning pretty much during the week, and
she's on the Team Ellie side, isn't she?
She's on the
Team
she
Joel?
hates everyone.
Oh yeah, she thought there was no redeeming quality in anyone.
She said it's a brilliant game. It's almost perfect. She hates it because
All the
the
characters
point
suck.
is everyone sucks.
Yeah.
And you know,
But I think that's more realistic.
She talks about it that way.
I think that's
so.
more realistic, that everyone sucks because everyone's human, and no one's perfect, and like everyone wanted a nice ending with, you know, tied off with a bow, but like that's not realistic in life, especially life in a post-apocalyptic world where there's a fungal virus going like pretty much taking over the whole planet. I think humans would be a lot worse in a world like that. I know they would.
All right, guys. This week's brew is Wheeze the Juice by B52 Brewing. No, I'm not even done yet. It's a hazy IPA, lots of citra hops, so it's really like citrusy with that dank finish.
Dank. Dank.
Charlie thinks she's being clever, but she doesn't know craft beer lingo.